All right, guys, we do have some absolutely huge breaking stuff coming out this morning regarding the Big 12. It says the Big 12 and its TV partners, Fox and ESPN, have agreed to enter an early contract discussion about the league's next television deal. The conversations will begin soon and come a year and a half before the contract's exclusive negotiation window. This story breaking this morning. So the Big 12 wants to work out some sort of TV deal early, and this could have a major effect on overall expansion. We've got multiple stories on that. It says the imminent opening of these conversations is significant as they come more than a year and a half before the league's television contract calls for a formal exclusive negotiating window with both current partners, ESPN and Fox. So the number one thing I want to talk about, there had been rumors that CBS wanted a slice of the Big 12, possibly. I had speculated and had said, with CBS paying $350 million for the 3:30 game for the Big 10, I think they're out. I think this is strictly the Tier 1 rights, the Tier 2 rights, the Tier 3 rights will be divided between ESPN and Fox as they enter this negotiation window. This development allows the Big 12, which has a contract through the 2024 football season, to potentially get tangible future revenue numbers for both its member schools and potential additions. So that's where the whole conference expansion, conference realignment angle plays into this. They're trying to get legitimate numbers. They're trying to lure teams. This is my theory on what I think happened. I think Colorado, I think Utah, Arizona State, any team that's currently in the Pac-12 that's thinking of going to the Big 12, they want legitimate numbers. They want to say, is this really worthwhile? The only rumor I've heard about the Pac-12's contract negotiations, it was roughly a 12-year deal worth around $360 million. It would be basically $25 million per school per year. And you've got all these schools who are thinking of going from the Pac-12 to the Big 12, telling the Big 12, listen, you're coming up on new negotiations. Your deal ends after the 2024 season. So, coming up soon, they want to know the overall numbers they would be receiving if they jumped ship. They're not just going to leave the Pac-12 because the conference lost USC and UCLA. It would have to make sense for these teams. So we're seeing an already very aggressive Big 12 say, listen, we want more teams. This is another step. This is another hint that the Big 12 is fully on board for expansion. This is just another way to be more aggressive and say, listen, we'll show you our numbers. And I'm guessing they're going to be at least marginally better than the rumored Pac-12, which was $25 million per year per school. There's been estimates, the current Big 12. I've said the issues with the current Big 12, it has to do with them not having a major school, but it's still going to be, I would say, well over the $25 million per year. You're possibly looking at maybe 45 to 50 on that. It says the conversations could lead to contract negotiations on an extension, which would be a distinct advantage for the Big 12 as it navigates this uncertain moment in college sports. There is no formal window for these conversations between the Big 12 and ESPN and Fox, which are expected to begin soon. If no deal is reached, the conference can still secure a deal through a more traditional timeline. And then we've got this article, Pac-12 expansion scenarios getting real. Plus, is the Big 10 having buyer's remorse? So I'll just summarize the whole Big 10 situation. Basically, this writer is saying that people within the Big 10 are, having a little bit of remorse with their deal, not including ESPN. And I think that just speaks to the idea they want to expand to 20 teams. They want a West Wing, and they want to try and get ESPN back to the negotiating table and give ESPN that fourth window at 10 o'clock at night. That is my opinion. I maintain that. And then we've got our good friend Burke Magnus, who is the big-time ESPN executive. He's talking about Pac-12 expansion. He said that he didn't think anyone believed the conference would stay at 10 members. Yeah, it's certainly not staying at 10 members. I can guarantee you that. But the idea with the Pac-12 is it would be going even further down in members, in my opinion, meaning they would lose more schools. Magnus is negotiating with the conference and spoke about Pac-12 expansion as if it were a foregone conclusion. It caught my attention and it raised the eyebrows of those in the media rights world. Said one long-time high-level network executive. I think Burke is being pretty honest, or he is a better liar than I am. And then it goes on to talk about this idea of a Big Ten possibly expanding, including the schools from the Pac-12. Would a new tier of programming be appealing to ESPN? Sure. We've heard about it for weeks. The Big Ten could use Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal to create a package of another 30 games that include those 4 new Pac-12 schools plus USC and UCLA. But Thompson tells me it would seem to me that Fox, CBS, and NBC would want those games to go into the selection pool as well. That does ESPN no good at all, because instead of having the Pacific time zones primetime window to itself, it could easily have, by partnering with the Pac-12. I mean, listen. So he's saying ESPN would rather partner with the Pac-12 and have the Pac-12's Tier 1 rights than do some sort of Big Ten After Dark 10:30 exclusive game, which to me, it all depends, is Washington and Oregon still in the conference? The only reason ESPN would want the Pac-12 is because of the 10:30 window, the appeal to airing games at 10:30. That's number one. Number two, it's they still have Washington and Oregon. If Washington and Oregon leave that conference, and if they get the invite from ESPN, which we think they will, that conference ESPN's not interested in taking their Tier 1 media rights. There's no teams. There's no teams that draw ratings. There's no interesting games. I mean, I'm kind of exaggerating. You would still have Utah, I guess. I mean, I don't know who else, but just in general, I would say this whole ESPN situation depends on what happens with the Pac-12 teams, and the Pac-12 has zero say in this matter. Because if the Big Ten and Kevin Warren, which he's already hinted at, if they say we want Washington, we want Oregon, there is nothing ESPN can do. There is nothing the Pac-12 can do. The only thing ESPN can do at that point is go to the Big Ten and say, you just got 4 more teams, you're reopening, you're changing your negotiation, you're adding another window, let us back in. And I think if the Big Ten is having buyer's remorse from not getting that ESPN influence, we will see the Big Ten be very interested in doing some sort of late night window 10:30 game with ESPN. That is my opinion. And then we've also got, how about this? This is very interesting. I found one well-known consulting firm is charging a Pac-12 university $35,000 a month to help sort through the options. So that's one expensive lawyer. I'm not saying that Oregon and Washington are staying in the Pac-12 forever. We're in wild times. I think we could see another round of significant changes to the landscape in 2, 3, 5, or 7 years. But right now, I'm leaning into the idea of the remaining 10 members staying together in this cycle and adding a few more universities via expansion. And this is certainly a possibility. Absolutely, guys. Absolutely. Washington and Oregon, remember, they want that no exit fee. That's what they really want, because they have the idea, we know we're getting into the Big Ten. They want a West Wing. It's just a matter of when, not if, and we will wait. We're not just going to go to the Big 12 because it's, the one opportunity. We're going to wait to get into the Big 10. There's no rush. We'll stay in the Pac-12 for the next 2 years. That's fine. This is certainly something that could happen. And then here's another partnership we're seeing. Let's take a look at this one. Also, ESPN could foster a loose partnership between the ACC and the Pac-12 to create some interesting crossover games. Of course, these things never work. I would not read into it. I've heard about 7 of these things over the past month. This is not happening. And I think it's important to point this out, this idea that they're going to do some sort of partnership. Yeah, okay. Especially when you've got Oregon and Washington saying, we want no exit fee, a.k.a. we're going to leave your conference any moment. But yeah, let's do another alliance, right? And then it talks about the teams most likely getting into the Pac-12. If the Pac-12 is able to stabilize, who are the teams? It's San Diego State and it's SMU. I think he also listed Fresno State and then a few other ones. But yeah, I would say San Diego State and SMU would be the two I would put certainly, we all know San Diego State. The question is, would San Diego State even want to join the Pac-12? Because the Pac-12 is a dead conference walking at this point that's being held together by the Big Ten, not aggressively expanding. If the Big Ten today goes up to Oregon and Washington and says, get into this conference, the Pac-12 is dead, right? So the Pac-12 is alive because the Big Ten is letting it be alive, and then that's also kind of the whole public perception problem. The Big Ten doesn't want to be the official reason the Pac-12 dissolves. That's why there were rumors the Big Ten wanted to wait for the Big 12 to poach the 4 Pac-12 schools before it took more Pac-12 schools. And then, of course, we got the news today that the Big 12, they want to open their TV negotiations a year and a half early. They're ready to go to the table, and they want official numbers, and they want to show these teams. They want to show Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, Colorado, whoever they're trying to get. Listen, if you leave the Pac-12 and come here, you're going to make X more amount of dollars per year by doing it. That is why they're being aggressive. They do not want the Pac-12 to have any sort of significant advantage in these TV negotiations. And then how about this? So this is a great end of remember, this is a Pac-12 writer. If the Pac-12 poached Oklahoma State, Baylor, Texas Tech, TCU, Kansas, and Kansas State, the Big 12 would disband. I don't think this is going to happen, in part because I don't believe ESPN wants to further disrupt the teetering ecosystem. Also, because I don't think the Pac-12 would necessarily want all of those schools. Why would any of those schools leave the Big 12 if the Big 12 has a better TV deal or even a comparable TV deal to the Pac-12? What is the point? Guys, the rumor, the Pac-12 had an offer, and maybe they got more. Maybe they got a better offer. The rumor is the Pac-12 had an offer from ESPN, and it was $25 million per school. If that's the offer, even if it's $30 million per school, there is no incentive for for Oklahoma State to want to leave their conference to go to the Pac-12 to make less money and dilute the conference further. Still, I'm throwing this out there because one Pac-12 AD told me he's in favor of chasing a number of current and future Big 12 teams versus adding a bunch of Mountain West Conference candidates. So yeah, I'm sure he's in favor of that. It's just like he's probably in favor of trying to take Ohio State from the Big 10, but it's not going to happen. Oklahoma State is at the top of my list. So apparently, if the Pac-12 were able to somehow expand and poach teams from the Big 12, which is what they should have done last year when the Big 12 was on the verge of dying, you should have gone for the kill shot. The Pac-12 didn't do that. Now look what happens. If they somehow were to poach any teams from the Big 12, it looks like they're obsessed with Oklahoma State for whatever that is worth. So that is the major updated news. We've got the Big 12 coming and negotiating with both ESPN and Fox. And if I had to guess, ESPN is trying to get Tier 1 rights to the Big 12. That is my guess over Fox. Because ESPN lost out on the Big 10, they've got extra money. They can splurge, unless, of course, they want the 10 o'clock window for the Big 10 games, which is something I do think is going to happen. But we will see. Either way, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.